Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show, where we discuss sanctuary cities, an alternate to what you think of as sanctuary cities, and a lot of background, reason, logic, data, information on why we are doing what we are doing. It is it's a show once a week dedicated to sanctuary cities and its kissing cousin, illegal as well as legal, immigration into the United States. We are joined in the studio by our erstwhile person manning the controls. Miss Irma Surefire is in the house.
Howdy, folks. How y'all doing?
Well, we'll wait to make the announcement till our Doc Owen show on Thursday night. We are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. As well, we have that's my Twitter handle as well, and we have a Saint Cities, SAINTCITIES, plural, Saint Cities. You can be found on Facebook, where we try to post things that are relevant to exactly what we're talking about, even some of the articles that we discuss. We have a blog, Doc Owen Show, spelled the same way, docowenshow.com. You should go out there, and we are building a store out there very soon, so get familiar with it. That's where you can go sign up for our email list and get notifications of the show. And last but not least, last that we're going to announce, we are all over the three largest internet talk radios in the world. They're headquartered in the United States, happen to be headquartered in the U.S. We also have apps, free apps for iPhone and Android, where you can peruse and listen to at your leisure and, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, all of our shows, all of our archives. We've had the Doc Owen Show going on we're now in our fourth year. This is the first year for Saint Cities, but they're all tagged as such, and you should be able to find them. We start every show in a very traditional manner, and so therefore this one's going to be right in keeping with the tradition. We get an inspirational moment or so. We're not really looking at the clock from Ms. Surefire. We follow that up with constant permission from a group that are friends of ours. We're closest friends with the former lead singer, a fellow by the name of David Bray. The name of the group was Madison Rising. At the time, I'm not sure they're still going by that handle, but at the time they were the most patriotic rock band in the United States. Mm-hmm. They have a song, Before the Hyphens Came, that we are particularly fond of. You should listen to and understand. And so we will dive right in with Miss Surefire, followed up by Madison Rising. Enjoy.
And tonight's quote, as usual for Saint Cities, is from pocketfuel.com. That's PKTfuel.com. And tonight's quote comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9 through 10. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. The Hebrews were looking for a way out from underneath the oppressions of Roman government and rule of Caesar. Sound familiar to the times we are experiencing today? Self-made people, countries, nations, and kingdoms never last. When we, as a people, remember to who we pray and whose name we embody, our prayers help us to belong to a different kingdom that doesn't partake with rules of violence, dominance, and control. Maybe then, through prayer, connecting with like-minded people, along with love, compassion, and mercy, we can possibly defeat the underlying evil that holds us in its powerful grip.
Whew, take a breath. That
that was a good one. Huh?
prayer sounded very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. So, rule of God versus rule of man.
That's right.
It is basic, succinctly what you were saying, which is why we have saint cities, sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition standing for God's tradition and our God-given rights versus thinking that those rights are given to us by our fellow man and doled out, correct?
Correct.
On the money. Mm-hmm. Let's listen to some music, and we will be right back.
Off and I'm rolling out of bed. I turn the TV on to wake up and clear my head. I catch the news in time to view another stirring of the pot. Talks of inequality and what people need, forgetting what they got. But in these times of opposition, the prejudice runs deep. Dividing us by heritage is all they ever preach. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. And people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. Down along the line, someone had a great idea. Divide us up by heritage and profit from the fear. But growing up a while back, before the racial trends, whether immigrant, white or black, we just called each other friends. And if we spoke an extra language, it was just another way to pledge allegiance to the flag. God bless the USA. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. And people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. For
I think I like that song. I think we like that song. I know I like it because I remember before the hyphens came. I lived in America before the hyphens came. It's when we assimilated and we literally all were one. There were no Mexican Americans or Hispanic Americans or Afro Americans or whatever. We literally were just all Americans. And yes, quite frankly, I miss those days. And I think that the sooner we get back to them and start thinking that way, the better off we all will be. Let's hear from another, I hate saying this, old-timer, but an old favorite, let's put it that way, a classic, The Duke. And John Wayne has written and recited a poem called The Hyphen. Pay close attention, will you? We'll be right back.
The hyphen, Webster's dictionary defines, is a symbol used to divide a compound word or a single word. So it seems to me that when a man calls himself an Afro-American, a Mexican-American, Italian-American, an Irish-American, Jewish-American, what he's saying is, I'm a divided American. Well, we all came from other places, different creeds, different races, to form a nation, to become as one. Yet look at the harm a line has done. A simple little line, and yet as divisive as a line can get. A crooked cross the Nazis flew, and the Russian hammer and sickle, too. Time bombs in the lives of man. But none of these could ever fan the flames of hatred faster than the hyphen. The Russian hammer built a wall that locks men's hearts from freedom's call. The crooked cross flew overhead above 20 million tragic dead. Among them, men from this great nation who died for freedom's preservation. A hyphen is a line that's small. It can be a bridge or be a wall. A bridge can save you lots of time. A wall you always have to climb. The road to liberty lies true. The hyphen's use is up to you. Used as a bridge, it can span all the differences of man. Being free in mind and soul should be our most important goal. If you use the hyphen as a wall, you'll make your life mean and small. An American is a special breed whose people came to her in need. They came to her that they might find a world where they'd have peace of mind, where men are equal, and something more, stand taller than they stood before. So you be wise in your decision, and that little line won't cause division. Let's join hands with one another, for in this land each man's your brother. United we stand, divided we fall. We're Americans, and that says it all.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That was from 1975, which tells me that Mr. Wayne was noticing and commenting on the same things that I was noticing in 1975. I was in my mid-20s and already paying close attention to politics. Actually, 75, I was 30, so I'll call it mid-20s because I cheated for a little bit. At any rate, we really got a good show for you tonight. We've got a conversation with a very knowledgeable man from Southern California representing the Californians for Population Stabilization. And so, in other words, they're using some very polite terms to say we need to take a pause on immigration and get our head and our hands around what's going on, who lives here, and what all we're doing for a country, as a country. So we're going to take a little 1-minute break, I think, grab a sip of water, and we will be right back.
Did you ever look at the stains in your coffee cup and then realize that's exactly what happens to your teeth? Paraswabs is the 5-minute solution to get your teeth white without visiting the dentist. This is John Greenhut, the CEO of Paraswabs. And if your teeth are stained from coffee, tea, or smoking, all it takes is 5 minutes with Paraswabs. In 5 minutes, you'll see an average of 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. It's clinically proven to whiten natural teeth as well as caps and veneers. The secret is a tooth detergent that was developed by Dr. Martin Ginniger that lifts stains off of your teeth. Best of all, there's no messy strips or trays that you have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes and you're done. To try Paraswabs risk-free, call 1-800-975-4583. That's 1-800-975-4583. I guarantee your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free today. 1-800-975-4583. That's 1-800-975-4583.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. We are glad you decided to join us. We've still got a lot to cover, so we need to dive right into it. You're going to listen to a conversation that we had with a fellow by the name of Joe Guzzardi. And Joe he's been at this for like 30 or 31 years. He's an author. He's got columns that are carried in newspapers and blogs, etc., all over the place. He is a very knowledgeable as well as a very dedicated gentleman when it comes to immigration. And he is representing, as we said earlier, a group called CAPS, C-A-P-S. You can find it at capsweb.org, and that stands for Californians for Population Stabilization.
Yes.
I never can remember that. I think it's the fact that there's the 4 in that, and it's not represented by the CAPS.
Yes, CA is like the abbreviation.
For California, right. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's listen up, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. Take it away. Let me do the introduction. Folks, right. We are about to have a conversation with a young man by the name of Joe Guzzardi, who is and you can correct me on the title, Joe, but you're the front man for communications for an organization called CAPS, which is Californians for
Population Stabilization.
See, Anna has to deal with those big words for us. So, Population Stabilization, and you can find them at capsweb.org. C-A-P as in Papa S, web.org is their website. They do some great work. Joe is a long-time author, actually. You know, he publishes in a lot of newspapers as well as blogging, and from time to time we get to hear his voice. Joe, nice to meet you, sir. How are you?
It's great to be with you, Doc. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's an opportunity both ways. So let me start things off by saying, you know, we're headquartered in Texas, which means we think we are the epicenter for illegal immigration and all the entrance over the southern border and all of that jazz. But in looking at the numbers and in looking at just a cursory view of the map that you have prominent on your homepage, I think we're running second place to Southern California. And I know you probably know those numbers.
Well, Doc, the good news for you is that, yes, you are in second place. The bad news for us is that we Californians are in first place.
Yeah.
We have approximately 2.5 million to 3 million illegal immigrants living in California. It's kind of hard to keep track of those numbers because there are more pouring across the southern border every single day.
I know. And what amazes me is all the politicians have been stuck on 11 million across the United States for it seems like 10 years. And
gosh, that's a great point. I've been doing immigration work for 30 years, and ever since the 1986 Ronald Reagan Immigration Reform and Control Act passed, maybe about 10 years or so after it passed, the number has been unchanged.
Right.
So that doesn't.
Yeah, it's like as many go home as come in on an annual basis, and I find that hard to believe.
I'll say.
You posted a recent article about let's change the focus a little bit from the southern border, which gets all the airplay and gets all the time, and well, it should. It's porous as it can be. But you recently posted an article about the Canadian border, which is kind of a, hey, wait a minute, we may have another back door that's open or a side door that nobody's paying attention to. And one of the things you brought out in that article was the number of, in particular, Syrian refugees that are being brought out of the Middle East into Canada. Can you kind of expound on that a little bit for us?
Oh, my pleasure. About a month or so ago, I had an opportunity to go up to Canada, tour the Canadian border with some other immigration experts, and it was astounding to see the vast number of open spaces where there is literally no fencing at all, and where the border is defined by a marker.
Yeah.
Just a marker says, okay, this side is the United States and that side is Canada. So we talked to a lot of Customs and Border Patrol officials, and we were taken around by some retired Border Patrol agents who, since they were retired, could speak freely and openly.
Yes, sir.
And they said that the possibility for terrorism via Canada is enormous, and it's been exacerbated by Prime Minister Trudeau's obsession with resettling as many Syrian refugees as he possibly can. I think the current goal is 25,000. That's
what you had written in your article. It's almost, I mean, they play as if the southern border weren't bad enough. It's sort of like they're waving their hand there to say, look over here, and the entire time they're coming in from the opposite direction, where it appears we're putting out minimum resources. And you mentioned a thing in your article called the slash is all we've got as a border. In other words, just kind of like when we put in new telephone lines or new electric lines through a forest, we, cut a slash. And that, in effect, is the border.
It's exactly that. And then, as I also mentioned in my column, effective December the 1st, Trudeau is going to initiate a program where anybody who lives in Mexico can come to Canada without a visa.
Huh.
So we know...
He's like Obama on steroids.
Yeah, right, exactly. We know that there are terrorists down in Mexico, operating in Mexico.
Sure.
And we know that there are a lot of ways that they can get in, but now all of a sudden it's going to be much easier for them because they don't need a visa. They can just get on a plane and go from Mexico to Canada. Very frightening.
What's his logic? What's his reasoning? Because you've done the research. Is it cheap labor? Is it? I mean, I know his front piece is humanitarian effort, but what's really behind it?
Labor. I think it's just an ideology that he's a very left guy.
Yeah.
And he thinks that this is the obligation of the Canadians to take in and resettle these Syrians and Iranians. And I think he doesn't like the idea that other countries in Europe are taking in many more than in Canada. So I think with him, it's just a commitment to resettle Syrian refugees.
And of course, I'm sure that the Canadian, I'm not sure, but I've done business with and worked for Canadian firms for about 4 or 5 years, know a bunch of them very, very well, and I know their culture. And so they probably object to this, but not to the extent of open protests, et cetera, like Americans do. They're far more kind of reserved. They think they'll do it.
No, you're right. You're right that they object to this. I talked to a lot of Canadian citizens.
Yes, sir.
And asked them what they think about the current policy of the 25,000 Syrian refugees and what they think about the policy that's going to go into effect on December the 1st about letting Mexicans travel freely to Canada,
Right.
and they are very, very, very upset and worried about it because, they know as well as you and I know, potential for terrorism is great.
Well, they're not stupid. I mean, just, I've always kind of teased them that, the temperature can be minus 50 degrees with absolutely no traffic on the street whatsoever, and they walk down to the corner and wait for the light to change. That's just the way they are. I've already finished my first pint of beer by the time they, go to the corner, wait for the light, and get back over to the other side. So,
I was in Ottawa. We started and began our tour in Ottawa, and
wow.
The changes, which are really just in their inception, were extremely visible.
Yeah.
The city is changing rapidly. The lifelong Canadians are unhappy about it.
Well, they'll have a chance to vote him out, I guess, and turn
like
things
us
around.
native Californians, Doc.
Yes, sir. I empathize with you. Not enough to come out there and hunker down with you, but I still empathize with you. We're getting quite a few of them here in Texas. We've got an awful lot of California transplants that are coming in. So some of that's good, some of that's not so good.
I think Texas is a friendlier business environment, isn't it, than California?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's very, very entrepreneurial. Taxes are low. Support is high. We have we like to think we have plenty of educated labor. There's still some areas that you guys are always going to outshine us on, and that's in terms of the IT world, and just because of your web of very, very talented young people, and I don't see any way to transpose them. So,
well, it's a little discussed element or factor in how California is adversely affected by illegal immigration. You have a lot of people with skills and with good jobs and with talent who look around and they say, hey, this is not the California that I know and love.
Right.
I'm going to leave. So we've got good people leaving, going to Texas, and you've got some less skilled, less talented people coming in.
Right.
That is a very bad. That's a bad combination.
Yeah, you're losing your tax contributors and gaining tax takers, and
Exactly.
and so Governor Brown's not helping you much on that front. So
Oh my God, he's
that's one of those don't get you started, right?
he's the worst, and your guy is among the best.
Yeah.
It's not the best.
Yeah. So for right now, that would appear to be true. But the challenge is we are all faced with the what confuses me. And since you've been at this so long, maybe you can help me, because it confuses me, and I have a hard time kind of transmitting it to my audience. Is this sanctuary city notion between the disconnect between police departments and policing units and the federal immigration authorities known as ICE? I mean, can you rationalize that? I mean, do you understand where that's coming from? And I assume it's the same in your territory as it is here in Texas.
It is incomprehensible. Sanctuary cities are against federal law. There was a law passed in 1996 that specifically prohibited the existence of sanctuary cities.
That's what I thought.
Specifically insisted that local law enforcement, whether at the municipal level or the state level, is obligated to share immigration information with federal officials when those officials request it. So
Right.
all of this business about San Francisco has passed its own law, that's all nonsense. I mean, in no case does municipal law supersede federal law.
It's upside down. Yeah.
Basically, I mean, what should be happening and is not happening is that the Department of Justice should be down on these people like
Right.
a ton of bricks. These cities like a ton of bricks, but they don't. And since they don't, and since Obama doesn't insist that they do, they get away with the sanctuary city argument.
So, which makes them a lot of money. I mean, I think sanctuary cities. We've talked to some folks from the Center for Immigration Studies, and they're very intelligent and have a lot of numbers. They're a lobbyist group, but they do their research. And I mean, there's some really good, smart people in there, Joe, and they, it's follow the money trail. In other words, a lot of organizations have not-for-profit sounding names, like Catholic Charities is one that I pick on, but it's a for-profit organization that makes a ton of money off of what they call resettlement and what you and I and a lot of others call illegal immigration. And I'm sure the same operatives are in Southern California.
They are in Southern California, and they are extremely well organized.
Yes, sir.
Extremely powerful and extremely well funded.
Right.
And don't forget, Doc, about the immigration lawyers, the way that they profit off of illegal immigration, legal and illegal immigration.
You bring up a very valid point. I had left them out of the mix, but you're absolutely correct. And the term shyster comes to mind. Since you and I are about the same generation, we hadn't heard that term in a long time.
It's a good one, though.
Yeah, it is. It's very appropriate. I can understand why the lawyers wanted to do away with it. It's kind of like
trying to revive it.
Yeah, I think we may be onto something. I'm not sure how to spell it, but we'll work on that.
We've been terribly affected by sanctuary cities. Of course, the headline case that went nationwide,
right,
finally about a year and a half or so ago,
right,
a little more than a year ago. And even though that made national headlines, and even though there was an outrage across America,
yes, sir,
5-time deported, 7-time convicted felon could shoot this beautiful woman at a tourist station in broad daylight,
right,
in San Francisco. We could not get Congress to defund sanctuary cities.
I know.
Paul Ryan, House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, would not defund sanctuary cities. The Senate refused to pass a very good bill that would have defunded sanctuary cities.
Yep.
Obama said that if the Senate had passed the bill, he would have vetoed it.
He would have vetoed it, right.
Where we are.
Yeah, and I absolutely remember of course, the outrage about that. And it's as if it was kind of what I call kabuki theater. In other words, it was just, all of the outrage was simply a show. Because there is absolutely no excuse when you make it all the way up to getting a derogatory rant from Bill O'Reilly, you've pretty well made it to the top of a movement.
I mean, there was all of this, as you say, for 30 days. There was all of this outrage. Oh my God, how can this happen? We've got to do something about it. And then it was like it never happened.
Well, I can tell you that's where Saint Cities came from. It was just the thought process of me sitting out on the porch and thinking, okay, where is my sanctuary city? How far do I have to move? I mean, how often do I have to move before I can create a good sanctuary, a God-fearing sanctuary? And so, just as kind of an FYI, that Kate Stanley thing was a real trigger to that. So,
and that's only the case, Doc, that made the headline.
Right.
There have been others, dozens, if not hundreds of others, in the 15 months Kate Stanley was murdered.
I tell you what befuddles me, Joe, is why the issue itself is not bipartisan. I think I know the answer, but I don't like it, so I choose to ignore it. And that is that one side of the aisle is expecting a lot of voters, and the other side has already given up that they're not going to get them. But then there are members of the Republican side, like Speaker of the House, who think, well, if we give in to them, then maybe we can get some of those voters. That's really the only reason I can see for allowing presidential candidate like Trump to flourish.
You're absolutely right that resolving the problems related to illegal immigration should be a bipartisan effort. Certainly something like getting criminal aliens should be something that Republicans and Democrats can agree on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you're right about the Democrats and their perception that all of these individuals are going to be Democratic voters. I think probably if they end up voting, they'll be Democrats, but the statistics show that they don't often show up at the polls even after they become citizens.
Well, I know, and I think what you've probably learned as we learn and know here in South Texas, actually the culture, the Hispanic culture. Now we've gone back to the South. We keep going back and forth from Canada to Mexico. Actually, you know, that their culture is far more in line with Republican culture than it is with Democrat culture. And we have
exactly right.
We have a hard time.
Notice, I'm sure,
that
the people that are out there advocating for more immigration and wanting to wink at illegal immigration are not individuals.
No.
They're these high-powered Washington, D.C. lobbyist types.
Right.
The average Hispanic, certainly a Hispanic American, they realize that, hey, more immigration means more competition for the job that I have or the job that I may want to get.
Right.
It means that my children are going to have to compete with more children for the teacher's attention. More attention is going to have to be given to non-speaking children. They don't want any part of that.
Right. But unfortunately, they're up against also part of their culture. They don't speak out like we speak out. You know what I'm saying? They complain and grumble and will tell you one-to-one, or they may grumble amongst themselves. But they don't get organized and really fight the machine like we do. And I think that goes back to a little bit to their inherited culture of several generations where the machine always wins. And so,
well, it would be great. I agree with you totally. It would be great if there were some well-organized Hispanic groups that were like my group, Californians for Population Stabilization or Center for Immigration Studies.
Right.
They got out there and lobbied and just told it the way it is, that, hey, more immigration is bad for us. Bad for us here in the Hispanic American community in Texas and in California. We don't get anything out of that.
No.
That was the question that Donald Trump posed early on. Hey, what do you get out of this?
Right.
Meaning American. I mean, talking specifically about Hispanics. But what do we get out of mass immigration? Well, that's a good question. And the answer that I come up with is not much.
Yeah, really. Maybe a little cheaper produce from time to time, but I'll pay the extra price if I don't have to pay it in school taxes or in medical care.
To pay 3 cents more for an orange any day of the week.
I totally agree with you. Well, what have I not hit on that you'd like to make sure to give to our audience other than go to capsweb.org, and we'll certainly promote that at every opportunity. What else would you like to convey? You've got 2 seconds. No, you've got. What would you like? What have I not asked you? What have we not talked about?
Well, my message to your listeners is not get discouraged, to keep up the fight, because there are a lot of Americans, the silent majority, as Richard Nixon used to call them, that are totally on our side.
Yep.
They are looking around them and saying, wow, it looks like there's been a whole lot of immigration here in my local community, and it looks like it's having an effect, and I think that we need to pause it now because sovereignty is threatened, jobs are threatened, culture is threatened. So don't give up the fight. Fight even harder tomorrow than you did today.
Good for you, Joe Guzzardi. I knew we were on the same page. I really appreciate your time. I hope we get
Hey, it was really great, Doc. Invite me back. It would be great to be with you again.
I hope we will make the opportunity happen. Thanks again.
And by the way,
yes, sir.
I love Texas. I've been there a zillion times. I always have a great time in Texas.
Well, come on down. I'll buy the first round of cervezas.
Okay, thanks.
See you later. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas.
Call 1-800-352-3127. Again, 1-800-352-3127. A fee-based company.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. This is Dr. Richard Owen. We are absolutely glad that you joined us. If you are just joining us, please go find the podcast. Use our app for iPhone or Android, or go to docowenshow.com, or go to Doc Owen Show on Facebook. Find the podcast, because it was very interesting. We had a nice guest by the name of Joe Guzzardi from CAPS out in California, and they are very much focused on the same things that St. Cities is. I don't have much time left, but I would really like to give you some facts, figures, and information. I am making the assumption that all of you know what St. Cities stands for, a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. We are focused on God-given rights, not rights given to you by man, but the things that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights protect. They don't provide, they protect these God-given rights, or nature's tradition. That's where that came from. Okay, Homeland Security records 23% rise in illegal immigration. Okay, it's from a reporter by the name of Ritika Gupta. Over 400,000, and there was another article I read that gave the exact number, 408,870 illegal immigrants were caught in the southwest border of the United States in fiscal 2016, an almost 23% rise over the previous year, according to the recent Homeland Security numbers released Monday. And that was reported in the Washington Times. All right. The officials also noted that the surge in arrests, which increased from 331,000 from last year, pointed towards an unrecorded rise in the number that had already sneaked in. Yep, there has been a heavy inflow, a record high, as a matter of fact, in the number of illegal immigrants traveling as families or those escaping difficult situation conditions in Central America, or as the Border Patrol calls them, OTMs, other than Mexican. Mm-hmm. All right? They actually comprise more than 50% of the illegals that are coming across. And you need to study up on the law and thoroughly understand it. We've talked about it before. That presents a problem because the law allows for detention and immediate exportation, sending home only Mexicans. Mm-hmm. Anybody from OTM country is where we have a problem. That's where we have to give them sanctuary, not long term. They have to show up in court, et cetera, et cetera. But at any rate, it's sort of a little sticky thing that if you're not familiar with it, it keeps you difficult. It makes it difficult to really understand the problem. Hinting at Trump's push for a wall, by the way, the statement said, walls, this is from Jay Johnson, the Director of Homeland Security, walls alone cannot prevent illegal immigration. Ultimately, the solution is long-term investment in Central America to address the underlying push factors in the region. Okay? In another article, talks about the number of people from Central America seized by U.S. immigration authorities at the southern border, outnumbered, that's what I was just saying, people from Mexico for the second year in a row. That comes from, again, DHS Secretary Jay Johnson. And he's pretty good at staying on message, because in this particular interview, he starts out by saying, walls alone cannot prevent illegal immigration. In other words, that's his pet phrase to get into his excuse, if you will. He says, border security alone cannot overcome the powerful push factors of poverty and violence that exist in Central America. So that's two separate interviews where, he's got his message, and he might have paraphrased it a little differently those two times, all right? He said listen to this, nearly all of those currently in immigration detention fit within the high priority category to be shipped back home. In 2009, 35% of those deported were convicted criminals. Last year, the figure was 60%. So, if you think like a government person, a federal government person in particular, they're doing a lot better job. That's how they look at it. But I think the question really is, are they getting better at finding them, or are there simply more of them? If there are more of them, then the percentage goes up. In other words, if there are more criminals coming across with a larger influx, that's why you wind up with a 60% versus 35%. And here's one that says, now, if those numbers don't bother you enough, here's one that says illegal crossings may be far higher than the official numbers. Mm-hmm. So the Department of Homeland Security, again, we're hearing from Jay Johnson, study revises and lowers the estimated success rate in stopping illegal immigrants crossing the southern border. But even that figure paints a misleading picture, according to the president of the union representing the Border Patrol officers. As you know on this show, we have a good friend of the show by the name of Jim Gibson, who is with Border Volunteers. So he's not with the Border Patrol, but he's with a group of Border Volunteers. But he knows a lot of the Border Patrol people, and he has their numbers, and he communicates with them on a regular basis. So this is no surprise to St. City's Doc Owen show, nor anybody who listens to us on a regular basis. But apparently it is to Jay Johnson. The estimates that 54% of the roughly 315,000 people trying to cross the border in fiscal 2015 succeeded. That is significantly worse than the 81% success rate in stopping illegal border crossings that the government officially claims. All right? We have a soundbite on that. I'm going to play it for you in just a second. This comes from the gentleman who's with the union representing the Border Patrol. Being an agent myself, I know those numbers just aren't true. It's just disappointing that they've been lying to the American people for so long. So, and they claim, and the government claims it's a result of a differing methodology. In other words, we count from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 differently than you count from 1 to 2 to 3.
Somebody abacus is a little off, huh?
Yeah, let me tell you what it is. The study's authors did not count people who turned themselves in and then immediately applied for asylum. They did not count those as somebody that they had stopped. So if you crossed the border illegally and volunteered to be captured, you were not included in the numbers. That number was 140,000 last year, which was up from 20,000 a decade ago. So do you think they're learning how to play the game on the other side of the border? Counting them as illegal immigration stops makes the border appear more secure than it is. That's exactly what they're doing. Play that sound clip, will you? And listen for some voices of our fearless leaders in Washington that you might recognize. See how many of these people you can peg by the sound of their voice. Alma?
We have strengthened border security beyond what many believed was possible.
The border is more secure now than it has been ever. Confident that the border is as secure as it's ever been. It is more secure now than it has ever been.
I think it's really important for this panel and the country to know the border is as secure as it's ever been.
Mr. Speaker, our borders are more secure than ever before.
Everyone here, the border is secure.
The border is secure.
I think our border with now 21,000 Border Patrol agents is under control.
Our border is secure, more secure than ever before.
The border today is more secure than it has ever been.
Is the border secure?
Well, I will tell you that there are more resources that are dedicated to this border right now and securing it than there ever have been.
More secure.
As secure.
Secure.
Secure. Secure.
Secure.
Secure.
The border is secure.
So, where are these 408,000 and change people coming from if they're not coming across the border? If you're ever in a meeting and you hear one of those people state that, do yourself and the rest of the United States a favor. Stand right up and holler bull sugar, will you please? Because that's exactly what it is. It's just absolute total nonsense. They think we're stupid, and they also know that we're too polite to call them out in one of their meetings. Stop that. Jump up and shout. Expect to be escorted out, but what the heck do you care? They're just going to continue lying. So, so we all know and we admit, and the numbers are there to say that it ain't happening. My favorite phrase is follow the money trail. Here's, so let me give you some numbers real quick. I've got about 2 minutes left, I think, or something like that, close to it.
Pretty much.
All right. Trump talked about building a big, beautiful wall, and it was met with fierce resistance. All persons who, and understand that all persons who cross the border illegal commit a federal misdemeanor the first time, and the second time it's a felony. Period. End of discussion. All right? All you have to do is follow the money trail. There's a thing called personal remittances, where people working here illegally, mostly for cash, send money back to their family and friends or whatever in the South, let's say. Not just Mexico, but Central America as well. That number, last year, 2015, the World Bank reported that $25.2 billion, B with $1 billion, was sent back to Mexico from people working in the United States. And the big banks in the U.S. and the bank in Mexico both get a cut off of each one of those little $20 transactions. And it's just...
It's true.
It's big. $25.2 billion a year is pretty big business just to type a few numbers into a computer. And, this thing goes on. I really wish I had more time to get into this. I'll get into it the next time. 98% of all remittances sent to Mexico come from the United States. It was 177 million in 1979. It's front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.